With an active sovereign portfolio of $82.2 billion and 666 projects spanning all sectors, it is very important that we drill deeper into portfolio indicators and use this forum to discuss our findings and resolve to take forward the lessons that we learn.
In a couple of years, maybe a decade and a half, we'll all be living in urban centers. The way forward must be to plan new cities properly, make them smarter, greener, more resilient, but at the same time also allow for existing cities to be renewed.
The first, deepen the understanding on the linkage between project readiness and implementation performance. Second, enhance the knowledge on sector-specific challenges and the application of the countermeasures during project design and implementation. And the third, emphasize the importance of robust developing member country policies.
A solid project design where planning and design are reverse engineered, which means we start with how the project is expected to be managed, maintained, and sustained, the elements and then process that support the end goal are then integrated in the project design at the beginning.
Policy dialogue with countries. In ADB jargon, we call them country programming mission. This is, if done well, this is an opportunity, a venue for discussion. And I observe that even government looks at this as a way to get their line agencies together with them and look at how projects learn lessons from previous projects. Also try to see if there are things that can be improved. And from the ADB side, first of all, to listen and see how things can be done and change.
When it comes to project preparation, we've really learned the hard way that it's almost essential to complete detailed design before we go for financing approval. And essentially, in the Pacific, it's in everybody's interest to ensure that projects are shovel-ready once the financing is ready. And again, we do have some new instruments and facilities here at ADB, and we've taken quite a bit of advantage of the new project readiness financing facility, which enables us to finance work through detailed design.
Plan. Figure out your critical path. Critical path is where you put what could be delayed. You just map it all up.
Safeguards really has to be one of the cornerstones of our development projects. It's about making sure that we do the right thing. And I think for ADB, to say from my side as the Director for Safeguards, it is something that we're fully committed to.
Why does ADB invest in gender equality? Because we're interested in development, as I just mentioned. We are interested in obviously having a talented human capital pool, and we're seeing that across our country, despite ADB's been here for over 50 years, we're still seeing a lot of gender gaps.
Will our investment lock us in to future climate change issues?
Projects in technology are different than infrastructure.
If we design our projects appropriately with sustainability in mind, then we will not be a drain on public finances. So while we look at the oversight aspect, the money actually gets where it's going. The other aspect of what we look at and what is our fiduciary responsibility is to ensure that we don't in turn develop projects or make investments that end up, once we leave, that are burden on the country itself.
Moving forward and to help us to achieve more, please also do your share in putting in place of enabling policies, institutions, and mechanisms to allow our support to be more efficient and effective.
Now on its 6th year, the Forum on Successful Project Design and Implementation is happening fully virtual this year. Government representatives are connected online from various parts of Asia and the Pacific. ADB staff and participants from the development community are also online. Organized by ADB's Procurement, Portfolio, and Financial Management Department, the Forum seeks to enhance the institutional capacity of executing and implementing agencies in developing member countries. In this forum, we want to broaden our knowledge and improve our approaches in project design and implementation. We learn the guidelines for mitigating project risks during the COVID pandemic. And we also discuss approaches in rebuilding project momentum. The experience of frontliners and cases from the field broaden our options for operating under the new normal. Most important, we learn together and learn from each other in rising to the challenge of COVID-19 and beyond. Post your thoughts in social media. Use the hashtags #RiseBeyondCovid, ADBOps. Learn from experts and people in field. Ask questions, share views, and join the game. Finally, meet new friends and connect with counterparts in other countries. Stay safe and stay engaged at successfulprojects.adb.org.
Welcome to the session, Achieving Value for Money in Procurement. Our facilitator for this discussion is Jesper Pedersen, the Principal Procurement Specialist of the Procurement, Portfolio and Financial Management Department. Mr. Pedersen, over to you.
Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone, wherever you are, and welcome to this session 4 of the forum, Achieving Value for Money in Procurement. My name is Jesper Pedersen and I'm a Principal Procurement Specialist here at ADB, and I have the pleasure of moderating this session today. Shortly on the agenda, I will give a brief introduction to how ADB sees value for money, and then we will have 2 case studies, one from the Maldives and one from Sri Lanka. But before we dive into value for money, let me introduce our panel today for the discussion at the end. First of all, we have Luca Di Mario, who is an urban development specialist here in ADB's South Asia Urban Development and Water Division, and works on projects in Bhutan, India, and the Maldives. He has more than 8 years of experience in water supply, sanitation, and waste management across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Luca holds a PhD in engineering and a master's in engineering for sustainable development from University of Cambridge, and a Master of Science in environmental engineering from Imperial College London. Prior to joining ADB, he has worked with WHO, EFAPS, and the International Water Management Institute. Welcome, Luca. Then we have Mr. Ahmed Murtaza. He is the Director General at the Ministry of Environment in the Maldives and Head of Waste Management and Pollution Control Department. He manages the implementation of several multi-donor waste management projects across the Maldives. With more than 15 years of experience in waste management, Mr. Murtaza has been working to establish a sustainable waste management system in the country. He led the formulation of Maldives' first national waste management policy. He holds a Master of Science degree in Waste and Resource Management from Cranfield University in the UK. Our next panelist is my colleague from procurement, Ms. Janina Raw, who's also a principal procurement specialist, where she supports the procurement portfolio of Bangladesh in the ADB resident mission in Dhaka. Prior to this post, she worked in ADB's regional departments for East Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific. She's worked in procurement in Latin America, the Middle East, and Asia for close to 30 years. She was a senior procurement specialist in the World Bank in India and Pakistan. She's also served as a procurement officer to UNDP country offices in Ecuador, Afghanistan, East Jerusalem, and Iraq. She has a degree in sociology from Catholic University of Ecuador, a postgraduate degree in the management of hospitals from the San Francisco de Quito University, and a Master of Laws in Public Procurement from the University of Nottingham in the UK. Our fourth panelist is Ryo Hayashi, who is a social sector economist in Southeast Asia Department. Ryo joined ADB in 2015 as a young professional, and before that he worked for more than 10 years in international development organizations such as the World Bank, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, and Japan Bank for International Cooperation. He obtained his Master of Science in Social Policy and Development from London Schools of Economic and Political Science, and his bachelor degree in economics from Keio University in Japan. Finally, but not least, we have Dr. Rizika Pereira, who is the Project Director of Science and Technology Human Resource Development Projects and ADB supported project in Sri Lanka. Concurrent with this role, he works with the Department of Mechanical Engineering, the Open University of Sri Lanka. Before joining the project, he was the Director General of the Tertiary and Vocational Education Commission of Sri Lanka. Mr. Pereira holds degrees in Master of Science, Master of Philosophy, and Doctorate in Philosophy in Mechanical Engineering, with his PhD obtained from Sheffield Hallam University in the UK. So we have a very capable panel to guide us through the discussions today. So I very much look forward to your inputs. With that, maybe let me give a brief introduction to value for money and how ADB sees it. So value for money has always been implicit in procurement in ADB since ADB was established some 50 odd years ago. However, it wasn't until our new procurement policy of 2017 that value for money was explicit mentioned as one of 6 procurement principles. So our fairness, economy, efficiency, and transparency has always been part of ADB's procurement principles. In 2017, we added both quality and value for money in recognizing the increasing importance of getting the best value out of the scarce resources in Asia to develop infrastructure and social services, etc. Now, how do we define value for money then? Well, first of all, it's the effective and efficient economic use of resources to obtain optimal development outcomes. And that is achieved based on an evaluation of relevant costs and benefits together with proper assessment of risks, non-price attributes, and whole life cycle costs as appropriate. Now that's a very good definition. Of course, we can always discuss whether it's the right, perfect definition or not. However, we need to operationalize the concept of value for money to implement it and to actually make it benefit our projects. And to do that, the first thing one has to look at, and what we look at in our projects, is what are the procurement objectives? And they can be There can be several objectives. Some of them there can be more than one objective, but some of them might not be an objective. So it can be price or cost. It can be the quality, risk mitigation or avoidance. It can be the speed of delivery and security of delivery. If we take the current pandemic, in the beginning in February, March, April, where every country was struggling to get PPEs and so on, the price of the PPEs were not an objective. It was the speed of delivery, security of delivery, and the quality of the PPE that were determining how procurement was done. So depending on the project objectives, what type of projects, one has to clarify what will actually in this specific situation create value for money. Is it the lowest price? Is it the long-term cost? Or what is actually giving value for money? Based on one's procurement objective, one can start looking at different procurement strategies. And procurement strategies can both include on how we approach the markets, but also how we design our contracts, which contract strategies do we use. So for example, competition, how competitive do we want to be? Is it an open competition? Is it between a few select high quality providers, or what is it? Do we evaluate based on lowest evaluated costs, life cycle cost, a combination of quality and price? Do we include things like O&M in the contracts, either short term, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, or long term? And then one can look at going into PPPs to achieve value for money. Do we include things like bonuses and damages in our contracts to get speed of delivery, for example? Framework contracts can be used both for speed of delivery, but also for security of delivery, establishing long-term relationship with certain suppliers. So for every project ADB prepares, we want to look at these procurement objective and the resulting strategies. And we have a framework for it. Well, maybe just a very important point here. The market has to deliver the solutions. So we might want to do certain things, but if the market is not capable of delivering it, if the market is not used to, for example, operation and maintenance included in contracts, it might be difficult actually to get the market to deliver. If the market is always competing on quality and not price, a lowest evaluated cost evaluation might not be successful, and vice versa. Now, for every project, we now require a strategic procurement planning exercise. And that is basically going through a structured analysis of first looking at what is the project concept actually, what are the project development objectives, and what is the environment that project sits in. The capacity and capability of the procuring entities, external influences, stakeholder influences, and how do you engage stakeholders and communicate with them. Market analysis, what is the market like? Is there possibilities for either expanding the market or dip into other parts of the market, looking at the supply chain dynamics, but also the risks. What are the specific risks in the sector in a country, in a particular project, and manage those risks. And then based on that, it's to look at what are the different procurement options and how can we then select the best procurement methods, bidding procedures, contracting strategy, and so on. And that is all documented in the project from last year. ADB introduced this. And that gives a very good basis for actually achieving value for money, looking at what is it that will achieve value for money and how do we get there. So that's just a very brief introduction to the concept of value for money and how ADB tries to achieve it in procurement through our project processing steps. Let's hear on the first case study, which is a waste-to-energy project in the Maldives, and actually is an example of some of this, how to achieve value for money. So I will hand over the word to Luca to give the presentation on this first case study. Luca?
Jasper, thank you very much, and very good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. In the next few minutes, I'd like to share with you some value for money features that we have or we are adopting for the Greater Male Waste to Energy project. Before doing that, let me just share with you a little bit of about the context and what is the project about. So the project targets the central zone of Maldives, the one highlighted in orange, and it's where the capital Male is located. And the zone includes also 32 small outer islands and 86 tourist resorts. More than 50% of the country population lives in the zone, and the area is suffering from inadequate infrastructure and equipment for solid waste management, as well as low institutional capacity. As a result, the almost 840 tons per day of waste that is generated are dumped in the open and often burned without control measures. This is, some pictures about the situation, the critical situation. There is only one dump site and there is no control measures. As a result, smoke, leachate flowing into the ocean, and it's a huge issue for the public and environmental health. So the government of Maldives has requested ADB to support and help to resolve this situation. We faced, in preparing the project, we faced three key challenges. Number one, scarcity of land for solid waste treatment and disposal. There are only 15 hectares of land for solid waste management. It's a small island country context, so land is a very limited resources. And this brings the need for high volume reduction efficiency of the waste to minimize land disposal. The second challenge is that the project site is located on an island, which is not connected to the capital, Male, and it's very far away almost from everything. And this requires very good capacity to handle logistics and implementation. The third issue is that in the country, there is very low capacity to design, operate, and maintain waste treatment infrastructure, especially the high-level technology required to respond to the sort of scarcity of land. So there is a need also to transfer the technical risk to a party that is best able to handle it. So that's, given these three challenges, we come up with, with the feasibility studies prepared by the government, with also the support of ADB, come up with this solution. Basically, to implement a waste-to-energy facility based on great incineration with energy recovery, which will allow the, reducing the waste to 80 to 90% for waste disposal, and then will be disposed on a landfill on the site, and implement this complex facility through a design, build, and operate contract with a 15 years operation service period. Together with institutional capacity, building institutional capacity in monitoring waste-to-energy service delivery, this is the essence of the Greater Male Waste to Energy project, which was approved back in August 2020 by ADB for a total amount of $151 million. Now, how do we expect to achieve value for money? What are the interesting features related to this project? First is the design, build, and operate contract. As many of you know, the DBO is a performance-based contract where a specialized contractor is responsible to deliver a fit-for-purpose facility which meet a certain performance requirements and standards. In our case, 12 performance guarantees and damages were set based on international operational and emission standards. The clear core technology, the great incineration technology, was defined in our contract. While this would hinder a little bit the innovation that the contractor can sort of make, but we took this choice to, first of all, to avoid past failures, because we observed in the past, especially in South Asia region, wrong technology selection was one of the major reasons for failure. And also defining the core technology enhanced the bids comparability at evaluation stage. The DBO adopted, as I mentioned, has also a 15 years operation service period, which is quite long term and allows to sort of embed life cycle consideration into the evaluation and into the contract. And really, the contractor will have to be the most efficient as possible, because if the design and the implementation is not very well done, with the fact that he has to maintain this plant and operate this plant at a certain performance standards for 15 years, if something goes wrong, he will be the major party responsible, has to bear with it. The contract was prepared with based on the FIDIC Gold Book for DBO projects, and also ADB user guides for DBO contracts for water and wastewater greenfield infrastructure. Of course, we had to tweak this a little bit, because this is a waste to energy project. Now, I mentioned that across the operation service period, the 15 years, the contractor has to maintain certain performance guarantees, 12 performance guarantees. And each performance guarantee has a related damage. So if the contractor does not meet this performance guarantee, he has to sort of pay some damage. These performance guarantees actually, they were sort of developed, having in mind the objective of the plant. The first objective is, of course, waste treatment, the waste treatment service. So the plant has to be available. He has to, treat a certain, tons of solid waste per day or per year. And the second objective is that this is a waste to energy. So energy is also, a very good asset, and especially because in this case, the employer is the owner of the electricity that is generated by the plant. And then the third is the environmental safeguards. Waste to energy is, is also quite complex from an environmental perspective, and we had to make sure that no adverse impact on the environment and on people would have been created by the plant. So all these performance guarantees have to be, as I said, met and maintained through the 15 years operation period. And there is also in the contract a very good leverage for compliance, which is a performance security of around 10% of the contract value. Across the OSP period is around could be around $50 million performance security. The third interesting feature about the DBO and with a long-term operation service period is also the life cycle perspective embedded in the price bid evaluation. In this case, there are the price bid has two components. One is the design and build price, so basically to design and set up the waste to energy plant. And then the second component is how much the contractor will charge every year for the service rendered, so for the operation period. And an interesting feature here is that basically the value of the electricity exports is embedded in the price bid evaluation. This means because basically the electricity is owned by the employer, so it's a very good asset. So this reflects the fact that the higher efficient, the more efficient is the contractor to generate electricity, the higher is the benefit for the employer, and this is basically embedded in the price bid evaluation, and I think it's a quite interesting feature. Finally, I'd like to mention a couple of process sort of decisions that we took to enhance value for money. Basically, the first is the market sounding. So while preparing the DBO contract, we tested the market. The government has prepared a market sounding brochure that was published on the website and then sent to many potential contractors to see and to check the appetite to bid for a DBO in a remote context, and including certain features. The feedback from the market was actually incorporated into the DBO contract. The second sort of stage we took was like to have a pre-qualification stage to just limit the entry only to very qualified contractors, and yes, I think this was quite good step, and we received 19 applicants, and 6 of them were pre-qualified for the final bid. In conclusion, to summarize, we expect to achieve value for money under the Greater Mali Waste to Energy project with 3 major elements. The first was the process, so market sounding to ensure good competition and understanding of risks. Second is the pre-qualification to prevent the entry of poor performing contractors. And third, and perhaps the most important one, is the design of the option of the waste to energy, the design, build and operate contract, the DBO contract, which specify clear core technology, the 12 performance guarantees with clear damages, the long operation service period, including the life cycle perspective, and the price bid evaluation integrating efficiency measures. A bonus and something also very important that is required in parallel is really strengthen the employer's capacity to manage the contract during the implementation. I think the DBO is a very good instrument, but a very good tool. But it's also very important that there is great capacity to manage the contract and also to evaluate the bid. With that, that's it. I'd like to just thank everyone from the government up to our ADB colleagues, also from the procurement department that really supported us in preparing this project and the contract. Thank you, everyone, and I look forward to the panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Luca, for a very interesting presentation, really highlighting how the cost, the quality, and risk mitigation were balanced to achieve value for money by incorporating different features. I think it's a really good example of how, by going through a proper planning process, you can get to a result where you achieve value for money or have a chance of achieving value for money. I would like to invite Janina to say a few comments on this topic. Janina, over to you.
Thank you, Jesper, and good afternoon, good morning to everybody. Welcome to this 6th forum. And congratulations, Luca, for such an interesting presentation on an actual infrastructure investment financed by ADB that was designed to achieve value for money of the asset for the borrower. So as we heard in the introduction session by Jesper, value for money was introduced as one of the core procurement principles in the 2017 ADB new procurement framework. And it is a catalyst to achieve value for money. And one of the tools, the strategic procurement planning, focuses on quality procurement, which fits the purpose of the project. More specifically, can say that we need to identify why and when to apply quality and cost-based selection method in the evaluation of the bids, aiming to choose what? Suitably experienced, high-quality contractors and minimize the potential subjectivity risk when applying the merit point criteria or other evaluation criteria, like Luca said, like the life cycle costing or the total cost of ownership. Why? Because value for money considers the real total cost to the borrower of the goods, works, or services that the borrower is procuring. So I can say that it's also fundamental to consider project appraisal techniques for non-priced factors, including valuation of externalities for cost-benefit analysis as part of the economic analysis to prepare more accurate cost estimates, including the operations and maintenance costs, because those have significant impact on the project sustainability and can impact importantly while the evaluation of the bids. Also, the discussion needs to consider prospects for future application of quality-focused evaluation criteria and the trade-off between quality, cost, and time, which will require specific needs for more upstream resources, ex-ante work in the strategic procurement planning to develop appropriate procurement strategy, including contract management, because in this way, we will ensure the value for money is actually achieved. So we come down to one important factor that Luca mentioned, which is the capacity and awareness building of both ADB staff as well as the executing and implementing agencies staff, because this is critically to successfully promote and gain the legitimacy in achieving the value for money, which would require different perspectives from the status quo of the traditional least cost approach. So large, high quality infrastructure projects require a series of professionals' inputs, such as good design by engineers, high-level technology, market-based attractive procurement packages to encourage innovative solutions from the market, so the market can respond to the requests. And then, only then we can really identify high-capable contractors to produce the agreed outputs, skilled and motivated executing and implementing agency officials to manage the bidding processes, and subsequently contract implementation to sustain the effective operations and maintenance of the assets over the life cycle of the assets. So to achieve this, as Jesper mentioned, the strategic procurement planning exercise should first ensure the value for money and quality are actually adopted in the strategy. Second, the SPP is an opportunity for the borrowers, executing and implementing agencies, and also ADB to look jointly at the market and determine the optimum procurement approach, which is risk-based to deliver the right procurement results. And thirdly, the SPP has also the ability to customize the procurement processes to the country and market conditions. So then we can really get a fit for purpose approach. So value for money is proportionate to the complexity and the risk of the procurement packages, which will determine the level of research and analysis to be undertaken ex ante by the SPP exercise. Allow me to emphasize that market analysis is a key process which allows the borrower to develop appropriate understanding of the relevant market factors, structures, and how they operate. So how can we expect that the market will react to our invitation to tenders? On the other hand, quality is an aspect of the value for money equation that compares the benefits gained from improved quality against the costs incurred and its trade-off between quality and cost. So this requires extensive consultation and collaboration with the borrower and other key stakeholders to confirm the borrower's willingness, readiness, and capacity to engage and manage these new type of procurements like the one that Luca just presented to us. So the project teams need to put deliberate efforts to explain to the borrower, executing implementing agencies, including not only executing implementing agencies, but also the auditor generals, the integrity committees, the technical evaluation committee members, finance departments in the borrower country, all the benefits of adding value for money and quality in the procurement. So to conclude, quality-based selection with weighted merit point criteria is an important consideration in the selection of high-quality, good contractors. A methodology for ranking and selecting bidders is necessary based on a balanced among quality, cost, time, and other desired characteristics. As in the Luca case, performance over the operational maintenance during the life cycle of the asset, and so many other elements. In other words, it's a combination of qualitative and quantitative criteria. And this can be achieved by applying this percentage weighting to the evaluation criteria in proportion to their importance to the achievement of the contract outcomes that are expected from the evaluation. So quality is critical, and it's desirable to weight quality higher than the price. But where quality, at the same time, where quality is given a higher weighting, the borrower needs to ensure that the evaluation criteria and scoring system are conducted as objectively as possible, and that the risk of abuse of discretion and subjectivity is also addressed and mitigated. So this is some thoughts for the discussion and the panel, and I stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Janina. I think that you very well described, first of all, how complex this topic is, how many stakeholders that are involved, but also the possibilities of applying both strategic procurement planning and looking at it from a value for money perspective. And also leading up excellent to our next case study on merit point systems or quality cost selections, as we have in the Sri Lanka case. And I will hand over to you, Rio, to take us through that case. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesper, and everyone for participations. And as Janina mentioned, there are a lot of attentions to this merit point evaluation right now. Under the ADB new procurement framework, it is possible to introduce merit point evaluation, which was not exercised under the ADB procurement for a long time. But this is one of the few projects piloting to use the merit point evaluation immediately after ADB procurement framework is revised. And this may be a good, interesting case studies for everyone. So this is about the merit point evaluations for science and technology human resource development project, faculty building design build contracts in Sri Lanka. My name is Ryotaro Hayashi. I'm the social sector economist, human social development division in South Asia Regional Department, ADB. And we have like a project director, Dr. Pereira, and he will respond your questions during the panel sessions. And I'll be also happy to join later. But let me start from the background. So this is a project called Science and Technology Human Resource Development Project, abbreviated as STHLDP. This project was approved by the board on August 2018 with $145 million financing from ADB. The executing agency is the Ministry of Education with 4 universities as implementing agency. Sri Lanka is famous for achieving high human capital development index, but the access to tertiary education is very limited. For the successful transition into upper middle income country, access to employment-oriented higher technology education needs to improve, which is the outcome of the project. There are 5 outputs, including output 1, innovative technology learning and the research environment established. This output 1 accounts for 77% of the loan amount and support infrastructure development of the universities. There are 15 state universities in Sri Lanka, and this project supports 4 universities as implementing agency. 2 universities, University of Kelaniya and University of Srijaya Wordenepura, are located near the capital city and economic center in Colombo. Rajaratha University is in north, where capital city was located in ancient Sri Lanka. Savaragama University is located in a place with beautiful nature and mountain contributing to the regional development. All 4 universities need new academic buildings to establish Faculty of Technology or Engineering to expand access to tertiary education. During the project processing, we decided to apply merit point evaluation on civil work. There are 3 reasons for applying merit point evaluations. First, merit point evaluation is not necessarily new to Sri Lanka. There were local practices for using merit point evaluation on civil work technical proposal. Second, design-build contract is more suitable for constructing new academic buildings. Merit point evaluation fit for purpose, especially for evaluating building architectural and the functional designs, which contribute to value for money. Third, new ADB procurement framework launched in a very timely manner during the project processing. So those are the 3 motivations we decided to apply merit point evaluation for this particular civil work package under this project. Let me explain how merit point evaluation looks like using this project as an example. Evaluation of the civil work contract has 5 steps. First, minimum qualification criteria, such as financial performance, average annual construction turnover, and the experiences remain as they are used in normal procurement. Second, the technical mandatory requirements were also set, which led to disqualification if the bids do not comply with requirements. Initially, more than 10 requirements were listed, but finally only one, ISO 9001, was used as other factors are considered in the next step. Third, bidders need to get 70 points out of 100 through technical scoring, otherwise they will be disqualified. Fourth, since this is single stage 2 envelope bidding procedure, only those who are qualified all of the step 1, 2, and 3 go to financial envelope opening and their financial proposals are evaluated. Finally, most advantageous bid is decided by combining technical score and financial score. So this is how it looks. And in terms of the scoring evaluation criteria, this is presented here, were prepared through several rounds of meeting and email exchanges among the project management unit, PMU, universities, consultants, and ADB team. There are minor differences among 4 universities, and this presented one is for University of Kelaniya. The total score as well as minimum score requirements are allocated for each evaluation sub-criteria, as you can see. I do not go into the details, but there are 2 parts consisted of company evaluation and technical proposal evaluation. The company evaluation part has 20 total points with minimum 10 points, including assessment of experience and staff as sub-criteria. The technical evaluation part has 80 total points with minimum 40 points, including sub-criteria related to design approach, ancillary, and quantitative one. In this exercise, we suggested to carefully consider the minimum scoring requirements since we worry to lose a good proposal because of failure to pass one minor minimum requirement. Total score is calculated as a formula presented on this slide, where ST is technical score, WT is weight for technical, FM means minimum or lowest among evaluated financial bids opened, F is financial bids of particular bidder, and WF is weight for financial part. So this is essentially like a weighted average of the technical score and the financial score. Initially, we agreed to set high weight on technical proposal, at least 60%, so that technical elements such as building design can be highly considered. However, the government committee could not find any basis to approve this high rate, relatively high rate of 60%, and the weights were determined at 25% technical and 75% financial at the final stage. So after several weeks of considerations, they decided to follow the guideline issued by SIDA, a government agency in Sri Lanka, which supervises construction industry, which indicate the technical weight may be considered up to 25%. So there was a big challenge of complying with the national procurement regulations. And another very important area, as discussed by Janina and Jesper, is minimizing subjectivity in merit point evaluation. So this is a fundamental challenge. In order to achieve it, first, we agreed to prepare the detailed evaluation guide for each and every scoring criteria as presented in the slides before. The left side of this slide explains how design aesthetic appeal shall be considered as an example. The aesthetic appeal could be subjective depending on the evaluators. But this guide defines this aspect more specifically by looking into proportionality, use of good design language, scale, reflection of university visions, use of materials, and so on. While this may not be the perfect solutions, but could provide basis to reasonably evaluate the technical proposal on this aspect objectively. Second, on the right-hand side, we requested PMU to set up an expert panel composed of selected people only so that the undue influence from other members or higher authority of the ministry, etc. on scoring can be avoided. The panel's task is to submit expert panel reports composed of the scoring sheet and description of the reasons of scoring on all criteria. The panel experts need to declare no conflict of interest with the bidders and need to maintain confidentiality. As of today, among 4 universities' civil work bids, 1 civil work contract has been signed, and 2 contracts are waiting for cabinet approval for contract awards without any big issues. The remaining 1 bid is at the technical evaluation stage. So here are 3 key lessons learned. First, as explained, weight of technical score was set as 25%, and this financial weight was 75%. This was originally not envisaged in. This gives pressure to bidders to provide low price bid, but this may not be ideal in terms of value for money to achieve the objective of constructing university landmark faculty building. In the future, we recommend to check carefully in advance if the borrower is ready to accept higher weight for technical proposal evaluation, depending on the nature of civil works. Second, preparation of evaluation guide in advance is quite effective. It gives clear guidance and basis of discussion among evaluators. It may also help to respond to any debriefing requests from bidders which are not yet requested but could be expected in the future. Third, retaining internationally reputable consultant in the expert panel would be important. They drafted the scoring criteria and the evaluation guide and are involved in the scoring as panel members. Engaging international experts can also increase the credibility towards independence for expert panel. Contracting on lump sum basis is a good option to engage expert panel members since we are not able to know in advance how many technical bids needs to be scored. So those are the 3 key lessons learned through this ongoing civil work selection process, and hope this will be helpful. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Rio, for a very interesting presentation and example of using merit point system. And you're right, it's for ADB finance projects, it's not that many examples that we have so far, and that has gone all the way to actually awarding a contract using the merit point system, but very interesting. We're getting a lot of questions also from the audience. And maybe I'll start with, for the Maldives project, Ahmed. One of the things that you did was market engagement. So the question is, first of all, can you provide more details on how it was done, how feedback was incorporated, but also for all the panel members maybe, what is the best practices and steps to actually do a market assessment to know who's out there and what is their opinions on bidding for particular projects? So specifically for Maldives, what did you do, but also more general, what are the best practices to analyze markets? So Ahmed, if you want to kick off.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. As told, the market engagement was crucial for us to understand international private sector engagement to design, build, and operate for a long-term period of high-level technology, especially on a remote island and a small country context. The risks were quite high, and we wanted to understand more what was the contractor's perception and come up with balanced risk allocation. For this reason, together with the ADB consultants, we did a lot of background research on existing contracts in other countries and created a brochure which was published on MOA website and also distributed widely via email to major WTE players internationally operators, around 25 of them. The brochure described the context, opportunity, and key design features, requesting companies to submit feedback. We also had several questions. For example, if a landfill for disposal of incineration bottom measures residual should have been included into the same contract or perceived as too high risk, or how the contractor was perceiving commercial risk of electricity sale on an island not yet connected to the larger Greater Male grid. So market's answer was very good and really informative for us. Of course, we did not accept all the feedback from them submitted, but these helped us to critically confirm or reject some ideas we had. I think the result was very quite good. We had 19 submissions at pre-qualification stage and 6 shortlisted contractor invited to submit a complete bid. Very honestly, we are not expecting this number. Thank you. What would I do differently? Perhaps a roadshow inviting contractor on the site to better explain the site constraints. We thought about this, but it was not easy to organize given the short time frame we had. Also, we could have published this opportunity on social media. We did it only through the web and via email. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have another, now I have you, Ahmed. Looking back at the experiences so far, if you had the same project coming up again, is there anything that you would consider doing differently, either in the preparation of the project or the approach to the procurement or anything? What are for you, the key lessons learned so far?
This was quite new to us in the Maldives. For example, DBO kind of projects we never had implemented in that project. So it was quite a learning process for us. And it's a very complicated question that you asked just because of the new project that we implemented for this kind of nature. And it's very complicated and a long process, but I think if we do it again for a new project, I think we would have gone through some international conferences to showcasing the project to attract a more wider audience and contractors intentionally. That is something we could have done even for this, but like I said, there was no time for us to do all these kind of things in this project.
Thank you very much. Now, if we turn to, actually, I want to just have one more question on the Maldives, and maybe that's more for you, Luca. What were the experiences on, but also Ahmed, in terms of developing the capacity for contract management? I mean, this is a very complicated 15-year O&M contract. How long time has been spent on developing the contract management capacities, and what are some lessons learned in this aspect? Over to you.
Okay, thank Jasper. I think that's a very interesting question. You know, you don't build a contract management capacity in one day or with a training, and you know, it requires a lot of time. It requires a lot of, you know, sort of hands-on sort of support. So that is why we are, you know, supporting the government, you know, across the implementation on contract management. And with that, we're also providing training. But I think very important is to have also a very qualified firm and consultant that would, you know, really help the employer to, you know, manage the contract, at least during the first years of, you know, implementation and operation. So in fact, as part also of the project design, there will be a specialized firm to, you know, really support the government in contract management and in train and understanding more and more what are the, you know, sort of also contract clauses and, you know, sort of details. The government already knows because, you know, I mean, they are very aware about the contract because they, you know, prepare it and, you know, together with our consultants. But yeah, I mean, it's very important that there is, you know, and very honestly, this will, I think, will last a few years. And yeah, we don't expect, you know, to build this capacity really with the training. And another interesting feature that we have adopted there is thanks to the support of High-Level Technology Fund of ADB, we run a twinning program with professional operators in Japan, waste management operators. So there have been some exposure visits in Japan, and then also some operators came to the Maldives. And, you know, they really discuss also some, you know, sort of performance, how you evaluate the performance, especially in terms of emission standards. And again, this is the very first time this kind of plants, large scale, happens in the Maldives. So it will require a lot of time and efforts. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Luca. Let me turn to Dr. Pereira. In developing these evaluation criteria, point scoring evaluation criteria, how did you determine what was right? There was, I understand, a slight difference between the 4 different universities as well. And what were the main challenges, and how did you address those challenges in developing the criteria? Dr. Pereira?
Thank you very much for the question. We had, as Rio explained, we had universities in 4 different locations of the country. And one location, Kelaniya, was more prone to flooding. And whereas Sabaragamu was in hill area, which was more prone to soil erosion. So developing the evaluation criteria, we had to address specific requirements of each site. And also with regard to challenges, for some of the biggest challenges were to maintain the transparency and maintain high accountability of this mark scheme. And this was evident by not receiving any complaints during the appealing stage of the procurement. And the second was make it more competitive. And as this is international competitive bidding, we had to think about bidders coming from different countries under different systems from eligible countries. If we thought about only the Sri Lankan bidders, that is not fair for other bidders, and we will be losing our competitiveness. And the biggest fear we had was going for rebidding. Since this was new, if with so many constraints, the evaluation criteria, if no bidder will qualify for the next stage, this means going for rebidding, which will be very, very painful for us. So fortunately, we have managed to have this evaluation criteria with a good selection, and also without going for rebidding for any of these locations. And value for money was another concern. As presented by Rio, we wanted to have a 65% technical and 45% financial for the evaluation. So we were talking about whether it should be more than the 65 for technical or less than, because if we increase the technical marks for the technical evaluation, the bidders might not care much about the budget and the cost might go high. And so also if we lower the technical score, there's a very high chance of getting a design at low cost which does not meet the requirements of the university. But we had to comply with the government legislation. That's why we had to stick to 25-75 for the 25 for the technical evaluation and 75 for the financial. But I certainly personally believe it is better if we could increase it at least up to 55 for the technical. And developing this criteria, we started with the ADB standard minimum pass-fail criteria, including eligibility, historic non-performance, financial situation of the bidder, and which is with annual turnover and experience. But to address specific requirements of the design and build of university, we had many criteria, including green building, certification, functionality, aesthetic appeal, and so on. Many different criteria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do have a follow-up question, both for you, Dr. Pera, but also for Rio. And that's on the market engagement. Did you have any early market engagement with potential bidders before finalizing evaluation criteria or the bidding documents? Would be interesting to know. I don't know, Rio, do you want to?
Yes, yeah, I think we organized the business opportunity seminar before before starting the advertisement of the bids. And there are several local bidders coming, and there are also some international bidders participating in the business opportunity seminars. But one of the challenges is we actually didn't find any international bidders participating in this for civil work bidding process. This may be a retrospect. We may be fortunate because of this COVID-19. If the international bidders are coming and they are the winning bidder, they may not be able to come and they may not be able to do the international travel, and which may cause some issues in the future. So in retrospect, we may be fortunate under this particular COVID-19 situations, but in a normal time, we definitely wanted to have international contractors participating in this bids and developing new faculty building as a university landmark. So so in a nutshell, we did a business opportunity seminar, but I think we should have done an international business opportunity seminar in addition to the domestic one.
Okay, thank you. Well, just a quick follow-up question on the point scoring, because we have questions from the audience as well. How do you avoid, if it's a point scoring system, unbalanced bids, or is there a maximum percentage for the financial that you believe there should be? And how do you avoid basically going way over budget if you get a very high quality bid, but at the same time, a very high price bid. How have you given any thought on how to deal with avoiding overpriced or unbalanced bids in quality and price selection? I don't know who wants to take that, Dr. Pereira or Rio?
Yeah, this was two-stage evaluation. First stage was the technical evaluation. Only those who pass this technical evaluation, each bidder has to obtain more than 70 marks in order to qualify at the technical stage. And then only those who qualify at this technical stage have been taken to the financial stage. So it was a mix of technical and financial evaluation. I can recall one case where in one contract, a bidder who has obtained high marks at the technical stage was not awarded the contract because he has been proposing a building complex which is much higher than the requirement given by the university, and the cost was also high, and this was not awarded to the highest technical score, but balance between the technical score and the financial score.
Just building on Dr. Pereira's points, only we can manipulate is the weight, essentially. And it's how much weight we put for technical, how much for financial, but we don't know the actual consequence for 50% or 60%, 70% in advance. So it's really difficult. Of course, we can do some market assessment prior to bid advertisement, but there will be some limitation. So it's kind of a betting process. And in our case, 25%, and some of the bids are really low quality. But we are fortunate to have at least one or two or three bidders making reasonable efforts to have a good design. So in our case, it was fortunate, but the 25% could be a little too small to construct an iconic landmark university building. Over.
If I may, Jesper, add to the question and to the responses of the panelists. As I said in my point, it's also critical how the project processing teams build the cost estimates, because sometimes cost estimates are outdated or because it was rebidding, it's historical and do not include or consider those elements that will be part of the evaluation criteria if we are going for merit criteria or for quality and value for money. So my point is that we also have to work on how we build and how we structure the cost estimates, so the balance and unbalanced bids in terms of the combination of the technical and the financial bid prices with using the merit point criteria will not distort the outcome of the transaction. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janina. Just a follow-up on this topic from our participants. In what cases and in what conditions is it convenient to reveal the budget to the bidders? And any one of, well, maybe I'll ask Janina to start with an answer, because that's a difficult question, especially also given ADB's procurement policy and regulations. So, Janina?
Yeah, it's a difficult question. In our framework, we do not disclose the cost estimates in the bidding document. However, we have to remember that at least the regional procurement plans are public information and are posted once the project is approved. So, but oftentimes, as I said, those cost estimates might not be really reflecting the actual current cost estimates of the transaction, because either the project becomes effective after 2-3 years, or there were some other factors like land acquisition or resettlements, etc., that might affect the real cost of the investment, the asset. But in ADB framework, to respond to the question, in ADB framework, we do not disclose the cost estimates in the bidding document, as opposed from other national procurement systems. In some countries, in some DMCs, the public procurement law includes the feature that for national competitive bidding, the cost estimates will be disclosed and will be part of the bidding document, but that's not in our ADB framework. Over.
Thank you very much, Janina. Yes, it's a difficult question, and well, one thing that we definitely do not allow in ADB is disqualified bids because they are above the cost estimate or the budget. And for several reasons. I mean, the main reason is that we don't know if the cost estimate is accurate. By definition, it is an estimate and not an exact science. Now, I just real kind of touched upon this, and since the overall theme for the forum is the new normal. So to all of you, and both in the Maldives and Sri Lanka projects, what kind of impact has the pandemic had so far? Will it have any impacts? And how are you addressing the health and safety issues, also considering that all of these went to market before the pandemic, basically? So, I don't know, maybe Luca, do you want to start?
Okay, so for the Maldives project, we advertise actually not advertise, we send the bid documents to the pre-qualified bidders in February this year. And we were in the middle of the pandemic, so there has to be several extensions for the submission of bids. But we arrived at, in August, all the expected bids were submitted on time. And so there has been, let's say, 2 months delays, in the bid submission. But in terms of, the evaluation is ongoing, and, we expect to sort of award the contract in Q1 next year. Now, the beauty of the DBO, in a way, is that you have a lot of time to, not a lot of time, but the initial stage are for designing. And a lot of these can be done in-house. So, and most of the bidders already visited the site, so they already have a lot of information. So we expect that, hopefully by mid next year, all the restrictions, or most of the restrictions related to the pandemic will be off. And Maldives actually is quite lucky because now is quite open. So it's it should not be, we don't envision huge issues related to COVID-19. But what we did also was that we really have allowed more time in terms of implementation, considering the pandemic, and also we were in time also to embed some of the health and safety issues into the contract, especially related to worker health and safety, in case the pandemic will still be there by the time the implementation starts. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't know, Dr. Pereira or Rio, do you want to?
Yes, during the design stage, we had few issues due to the pandemic. But as far as the procurement process is concerned, we didn't have any problem. We have managed to carry out all the procurement activities online, and even one procurement has gone to the cabinet last week, and we expect to get the decision of the cabinet next week. Things are happening, but with regard to the implementation of the site, with regard to the contractors, there are issues because there will be a lot of workers coming in from all over the country to these work sites. And specifically, we had a discussion with the contractor for the awarded contract, and they are going to adhere to the guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health and also the SIDA. Already, health guidelines have been issued by the government for construction sites, and they are going to adhere to the regulations given by the government, which include measuring of temperature before entering to the site, and social distancing, site cleaning, and zoning of movement, and if there are people with symptoms, what to do, and also random PCR tests and so on. So according to the contractors, they plan to move forward and try to stick to the time frame given, although there can be certain deviations due to imposition of curfew and lockdown in different areas of the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, there is still some unknowns, whether there will be more lockdowns, curfews, and things like that. So, but interesting. Now, one question we have here, and that's relevant both for both projects, is in one stage, two envelope systems. What happens if only one bidder passes the technical evaluation? How do we still ensure value for money in such a scenario?
I suppose Rio will answer that question. We actually have such a situation now.
Okay, Rio.
Yeah, I think Dr. Perry, you can respond, but so I mentioned like last civil work package is still remaining. The three packages are near contract award, and the one final package is still remaining. And that package has several bidders' participations, but at the end of the day, still we are under the technical evaluation stage, and at this stage we cannot make any formal conclusions or judgment on this. But the preliminary expert panel evaluation suggests that there are perhaps only one bidder meeting the technical evaluation stage, and the only one bidder will be able to move on to the financial bid opening stage. But in our view, it is okay. There are actually like an exact same concern from the technical evaluation committee in Sri Lanka. The TEC committee chairman raised these issues. Is it really okay to go for the financial bid opening stage only for one bidder? And our response is it's okay to move because competition is actually already there at the time of the bid preparation. And the technical proposal evaluation has been done competitively, and the only one bidder can most likely be satisfying the minimum 70 score, which was clearly mentioned in the bidding documents. And if the only one bidder meeting the minimum score through the competitions, we don't think there is any issues that the only one bidder will be proceeding to the financial bid opening stage.
Thank you. Yes, and exactly, when it is a one stage two envelope, all bids are submitted under the competition is assumed, because there will be more bids submitted. So we must assume that the bidder have submitted a competitively both financial and technical proposal. So from an ADB procedure point of view, it's not a problem. And I don't think it's a problem either. So I very much agree with that. Now, one of the things, I mean, both of your cases has been quite successful in terms of when the bidding documents with due consideration to the pandemic, but from the bidding started until you were able to award contracts. But how does delays in the procurement process, what can we do to avoid that the delays will actually influence the value for money components? Because ultimately the value for money is to provide the services to the citizens of the country. So how can we address potential delays in the procurement? I don't know, maybe start with Janina.
Yes, Jesper, you raising a very critical aspect in our portfolio, and it affects across the board in all sorts of types of DMCs in our clients. So there are so many factors that will impact the end-to-end procurement time of the transactions. Some are under control of the executing agency or the contracting authority, some are not. And that is something that it's unavoidable, and sometimes the procurement determinations of the technical evaluation committees might not be in line with the provisions of the national procurement laws, and then the procuring authority has to go and take opinion and legal opinion of the higher up levels and internal layers. So that will also add additional time to the end-to-end procurement time. So there is no easy question, there is no easy response to this recurrent systemic issue that we see in several of our regional departments. But it's something that the procurement teams and the project teams need to manage during the supervision missions and the implementation of the projects. How to tackle and to minimize the delays. The covenants of the loans says that the EMP, that the land acquisition, that the resettlement plan should be finalized before the bidding is floated. Right, but sometimes there are so many factors that affect the actual floating and design of the tenderings. So it's as I said in my comments, is the best efforts and robust efforts from both sides, the executing implementing agencies internally, and from the ADB project sides as well.
Thank you. I mean, Luca, Ahmed, Dr. Pereira, Rio, I don't know if any of you want to add anything, since that you have been quite successful in actually carrying out an awarding contract in a timely manner. I don't know if any one of you want to add.
Maybe.
Luca?
May I comment on this? I think, when we sort of opted for DBO, we had many people saying, oh, it will take ages to, evaluate, and, because, we had some cases in the past where, DBO's evaluation took really long. So the major question is, what are really the trade-off? Of course, the value of the DBO in this case, in the Maldives case, I think is really, really important. And the question that we asked, with the government is like, can we really do it, and can we do it together, and what kind of support in the evaluation is required, because it's quite technical, complex bid to evaluate. And you also have a lot of the government has to reply to a lot of questions, maybe from bidders that are very detailed, very technical. So again, there it's like given the complexity of the bid, is supporting also this this evaluation to really speed it up, and what the expertise that may be lacking, and how we can kind of supplement these during the evaluation. I think this is quite important. I mean, understand the capacity to evaluate a certain bidding process, and if there are no other options, if you want, then support, provide some supplementarity in terms of capacity. So that's one key element. The second element is I think also the clarity in the bidding document when you evaluate, and what are the criteria that you're really looking at, and what represent a major deviation or a minor deviation. I think this is quite important also, that the evaluation team is has these things very clear, because where we actually, I don't know, but I think that where most of the what takes longer is a technical bid evaluation, and that's what we really have to look at very seriously, and having clarity on how you do that, both at the EAE but also from the contractor side, is very important. So those are my thoughts on this. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't know if Rio, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think there is no magical bullet. I think a delay is inevitable in this COVID-19 pandemic, and the question is how to minimize the delays. And so technology will be certainly help, like this kind of Zoom or Microsoft Teams meeting setup is actually reminding everybody to move things forward. So setting up timely meeting, inviting all the right stakeholder will be quite essential. And at the same time, within the government, if there is one person who is chasing each and every process, because there needs to be some approval process within the government. And in the normal times, like people come to office physically, so it's very easy to follow up what's going on and doing some chat within the office. But during this remote working arrangement, it's very difficult to chase where the document is currently located. So it's really like a manual kind of stuff. But if there is one person who is dedicated to chase each and every document where it is now, and if it is reported to the project directors and ADB, then that will certainly help to minimize the delays. Over.
Thank you very much. Yes, it is a challenge, but it requires very close cooperation between both ADB and the government and all stakeholders involved. Now, I think time is almost running out, but a last question, and probably one of the most difficult questions, is, so for both projects, the procurement objectives of quality and the strategies on how to achieve it through either point scoring, DBO contracts, and so on is clear. But have you given any thought on, can you measure, or how do you measure that you were successful, that your approach is actually giving value for money? Have you given any thought about how you can measure that or not? Because that's one thing that ADB in general is always asked, well, introducing value for money, how do you measure that you achieved it? So I don't know who wants to start. Can I get a volunteer, or should I just pick one?
Thank you.
I think I can add.
Yeah.
All right.
Dr. Pereira, please go ahead.
Yeah, it is really difficult to measure the value for money at this stage, but from the contract that we have awarded, most of the employers' requirements have been met by the proposed design of the contractor, and in the merit point evaluation also they have obtained high marks. The only way we can compare although it was said that the estimate is not accurate, with the estimates we made, only one contract so far exceeded the estimated value. Out of 3, 2 contracts are below the engineer's estimated value. Whether it is reasonable justification to quantify the value for money is, I'm not sure. But as you have mentioned, it's a very difficult question. And also, it is too early for us to quantify whether it is value for money or not. But these are the facts that I can put forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ahmed or Luca, you want to make a comment on this?
I think I can respond to that question. I think when it comes to measuring achieving value for money, there are 3 elements, 3 important elements. Like time, we looked into whether the project is delivered on time and commissioning expected by the planned date or before. I mean, whether it has to be on time or before. This also should include the bidding process, like whether the evaluation was straightforward or whether it's taking longer than expected. And cost. The cost, whether was the project delivered within the expected budget or at cheaper or lower cost, was there any overpricing of risk, or the employer has to take any expected cost to risk during the negotiations. And also the quality, which is very important for value for money. Whether during the commissioning, the performances are set in the bidding document are achieved, or the contractor taking a long time to fix it. For example, in this case, in 5 years' time, is this still the case, or what is the cost of contract management? I think those are 3 more important elements for measuring the achieving value for money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No, I think that's very well put. And we are at the end of the session now. It's 2 minutes to 4. I think it has been very interesting cases and very interesting comments and intervention from our panel. To sum up, it's clear that this is a very complicated process of achieving value for money, and one really has to take each project on its own merits and see what in that particular project defines value for money, and also understand that value for money starts from project design phase and runs to not only to the end of the contract, but as in the case of the Maldives, it's 15 years operation and maintenance. Value for money should actually be looked at over the life of any particular asset. So it is one of the key takeaways. I think it is worth spending some more time up front, especially engaging with the market to hear how they see things, how they believe things can be implemented, so that we can improve our bidding documents and our approaches so that we can actually get better response from the market. That is one of the keys to achieving value for money through procurement. And then it is looking especially contract management. How do we do that? How do we approach the market? How do we evaluate? Is it clear for everybody? How do we manage the contract once it's implemented to ensure that it is the right quality, so that over the life of the project, we will achieve value for money. I'd like to thank all our panelists, Luca, Ahmed, Janina, Rio, and Dr. Pereira. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. And thank you to all our participants and all the great questions on we received. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to get through all of them, but hopefully we will have other opportunities to do that. So with that, thank you, and thank you for participating in the session. Over.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for participating in this session. We will resume tomorrow. We hope you use the time to network with other participants in this forum. We've also prepared a game to make learning and networking fun and useful for you. Go to the Games and Quizzes page to access it. And don't forget to post your key takeaways from this forum in social media using the hashtag #RiseBeyondCovid. See you back online tomorrow at 10:30 a.m.